You're listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at audiblepodcast.com/RCRN. Over 75,000 titles to choose from for your iPod or MP3 player.
Would you like to know how to play the game of life? Did you know there is a game? The game is the energy game. Everything is energy. So what are the tools and the rules for this game? If you don't know the rules and don't have any tools, you'll lose the game. Here are your hosts, Dr. Dean Allen, PhD, and Coach Steve Toth, to take you on a journey of discovery. How to play the game of life.
Welcome everybody to the Consciousness Systems Show on Real Coaching Radio Network. And we are in the studio with Dr. Dean Allen and myself, Coach Steve Toth, the founder of Real Coaching Radio Network, talking about something absolutely awesome. We're going to be talking about how to play the game of life. And like our introduction said, if you don't have any tools and you're not even aware that there's a game, most likely you're going to lose the game. Correct, Doc?
That's the way it works, yes.
I love this stuff, Doc.
Good. Well, it certainly got my attention, especially after spending so much time on things that just didn't provide the entire picture.
It definitely has my attention, Doc. And hopefully we have all of our listeners' attention as well. And
Wonderful.
All of the, probably over 100,000 coaches and professionals in the helping industry will have our attention when we break the news about how to cut this whole process a little bit shorter. Right, Doc?
Right. Well, and it makes so much sense no matter what you're doing, because no matter what it is that you're doing, you're dealing with humans, and humans are designed in a particular way. And our show today basically is on how we function. And there's some basic understandings about who we are and how we function that once we understand what our wiring and our wiring diagram is and what our energy flow really amounts to, then we can begin to make a lot more sense out of everything that happens in every aspect of our life.
Yes, Doc, that certainly makes a lot of sense, because when I first talked to you, what you said is human beings are in the state of confusion.
Well, that's the primary human problem, is confusion, and it's when one's concepts that they used to think about their life and their world do not fuse with reality, and that is confusion, and it manifests as symptoms and problems, each of which have a message, but if you don't get the message, why, you can't do anything about it. So that's
right.
what this work is all about, is decoding those messages from our symptoms and problems so that we can identify the elegant solutions and focus on creating them.
Yeah, that's right, Doc. And isn't the timing of this is perfect, because we just happen to be in a time frame where everything is seem to be speeding up, not just time, but also
Right.
how quickly people are becoming more and more conscious and awake.
Right. Well, and when things speed up, you have to process things clearer and quicker in order to stay even. Right?
Yes, and I want to say too, Doc, that since I've been involved with you, as remotely as we are, because we are in a virtual studio, and I haven't actually met you, but I'm looking forward to meeting you this weekend
Yes.
in the beautiful state of Idaho.
Yes. You will enjoy it.
Yeah, things have rapidly changed in my life, Doc.
Good. Well, imagine what would happen if you actually get a scan and start doing the work. But truly, I find this a lot, especially with people that really get it, is that all of a sudden they start seeing things in a much more clear and connected way, so that they make more sense. And as soon as they do that, they end up making clear decisions quicker. And as soon as they do that, of course, things begin to change and happen and move and create.
Yes. So what we've been doing on the show is, actually, this is show number 4. And what we've been doing is we've been going through your book, your ebook, which is The Consciousness Systems.
Right.
And I think you told me the other day that you're going to be renaming the actual published book. Is that correct?
Well, actually, what I'm doing is the title didn't seem to really convey what it is that the book is all about, and I liked what you chose for the show, and I thought that made a much better title for what the book is really about, which is how to play the game of life. And it's 10 chapters with basically 6 rules, or which were originally tweets. But what I've done is, without it having to be confined to 140 characters, I can express these a little more clearly, and that's what I've done. So that's what the revised version will be. It's basically the same book, but hopefully communicated in a clear way with a few more words that makes it more readable.
Right. And Doc, talk a little bit about the chapters in the book and which chapters we have covered so far, and why we're going through this book. And I think you mentioned this on every show, that there's a certain understanding and there's a certain language that people need to get and prepare themselves for before they can really kind of peel the onion and get down to
right.
the
It's
real matter.
basically what I've learned from nearly 40 years of both education, my PhD in clinical psychology, and then everything that followed that, including biofeedback research, and then working with this infrared technology for the last 23 years. And basically what it does is allow us to measure and then learn from electrical energy flow patterns between all the different organs and glands of the body. And you begin to see disease patterns on a whole different level. And it all comes down to energy, and whether that energy is flowing through expression or being subverted through suppression into counterbalances to establish homeostasis by a defensive strategy which will degenerate dysfunction, disorder, and disease over time. And there's basically 253 circuits, which are all the binomial connections or two-way connections between every organ and every other organ in the body. And each system has a very specific purpose, plan, function, issue, and trauma. And this is what we call the language. And once you can begin to see and understand that language, and then especially when you can connect it to yourself by having an infrared scan that shows where all of these blocks are, and then what I do personally in my work with people is to connect the dots between these block circuits and the decisions and traumas and memories and issues and everything that relates to their life. And once we start connecting the dots, people get much more conscious much more quickly, because now they see how the game works, and they see it in their own life and their own behavior, their own patterns, and this is when it gets really real.
Awesome. So the chapters we covered so far is chapter 1, we talked about reality. Chapter 2, we talked about confusion. Chapter 3, we talked about symptoms. And today we're going to be talking about how we function. And I want to make sure that the listeners know that if they miss the other chapters, they can go to realcoachingradio.net, go to the Consciousness Systems program, the radio show page, and review these radio shows. They can actually listen to them or watch them in video as well and come up to speed. And
well, and also, if they would like to have a written copy of this, that's what the book is basically all about. And with the radio shows that are on the internet free, it adds to the content so that it makes it much more understandable. So it's really a book and a discussion.
Yeah, correct. So they can go to your site and get this inexpensive book that
which is
you should have received.
ConsciousnessSystems.com.
Yeah, you should have received at birth.
Excuse me?
Everybody should have received the book at birth.
It would be nice, yes. It's basically, I use this book. I didn't really sit down and write this book. This book came to me over many years of working with people, and what I did is I wrote down all the things that I found that I repeated over and over and over to clients. And then, just recently I kind of put all those things together into this book, and it laid out into 10 chapters. And each chapter is really only one page, but then with the radio discussion, well, you'll get a much clearer understanding of what it is. And then 3 appendices which cover whatever's left.
Right. Very cool. And I also want to make sure that all of our listeners know, Doc, that you're going to be doing an introductory seminar for free a week from now on the 13th of July, which is next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Right.
And they can just go to realcoachingradio.net and click on the big yellow banner that says what we've been talking about, which is how to play the game of life, and register for free. Right. And get some access into what this work is all about. And it's kind of a 1-hour summary that I put together. It's kind of the cliff notes of what the game is all about in terms of the basic parts and how they work. So I think it'll be fun. I don't think I've ever put it together in a more condensed format than what it'll be on that show. Right. And I didn't talk to you about this, Doc, but I really don't like anything that's free anymore because it doesn't seem to be working. And the reason why I think it's not working is because there has to be some kind of energy switching between us and the person that's registering. And if it's free, then people think that it's not worth anything.
Well, I was this subject came up not too long ago, and one of my friends pointed out something that someone else has learned in this area, and that is at the Mormon temple they sell the Book of Mormon for $1. And the reason that they sell it for $1 is because when they gave it away for free, the garbage cans were filled with Mormon.
Yes.
But if they sell it for $1, and there's a principle in psychology that explains this, and the principle is called cognitive dissonance. And it basically comes down to, from a psychological point of view, people value things according to how much they invest in them.
Correct.
So if you don't invest anything in your mind unconsciously, it's not worth anything.
Yes, it's just like when people go to, a big auto show, and all the manufacturers give away all these brochures and all these things, and you can watch these people, and those brochures may cost $5 a piece to produce because of the quality. But these people, when they leave the show, they toss it in the trash.
Right.
Because it was free.
Right.
So let's not do that again, okay, Doc?
Yeah, well, you figure it out so it works, and I'm all for it. Initially, it opens up some, availability. I think that what's going to happen in this whole arena, I think we're going to get more and more sophisticated with our media in terms of how we present transformational experiences. And I think that's what people are really looking for, whether they know it or not, and I think that we're going to see more of those coming to the forefront. That will actually take someone through a presentation with probably music and presentation and all kinds of things that you can do with media to create an experience where it'll be much more real what this consciousness transformation thing that's happening on the planet is really all about.
Yeah, right on. So we're going to get into Chapter 4, Doc, how we function as human beings, as soon as we come back from our first commercial break. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
You are listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network. For you, the listeners of Real Coaching Radio Network's live shows and podcasts, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 14-day trial to give you a chance to check out their service. We recommend The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukav, or another audiobook free by trying Audible.com. To download your free audiobook today, go to www.audiblepodcast.com/RCRN. Again, that's www.audiblepodcast.com/RCRN for your free audiobook.
Discover how to create your extraordinary life with personal coaching sessions and all the ongoing support you'll need to define your vision, realize success, and create your extraordinary life. Join our online Ask a Coach program and connect with one of our expert coaches in the areas of health, personal finance, relationships, personal growth, environment, career, and spirituality. Go to www.askacoach.us and register.
Our spiritual development is a journey that needs deep personal commitment to have a lasting impact on our lives. A high level of awareness is the beginning of all areas of success in our life. With our spiritual house in order, our relationships, finances, and health find a powerful balance. For you, your friends, and your family, there is a new online community with goal-setting tools and professional experts to help you create your own spiritual plan and put it into practice. Listen now for details from your radio show host.
You are listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network.
All right, welcome back, everybody. If you're just tuning in, you are watching the Consciousness Systems show on Real Coaching Radio Network with your host, Dr. Dean Allen, as well as myself, Coach Steve Toth, the founder of Real Coaching Radio Network. And we're going to be talking about Chapter 4 in Dr. Allen's book, Consciousness Systems. We're going to talk about how we human beings function so we can all figure out how we play the game of life. Would you like to tee this up, Doc?
Yeah. The first thing in this how we function question really comes down to how we function electrically. And, of course, the technology that we use to measure this is infrared. And what infrared does is measure the density of electrons, or electrical energy flow. So basically, once we can understand ourselves electrically and see how we're connected or disconnected is where the problems are, then we can begin to make a lot more sense of out of who we are. And basically we began by outlining 3 basic human influences that are our past genetic memory, which shapes our present experiences from our environment in terms of reality as it exists, which is a deeper memory of knowing what these laws of energy really are. In other words, that's that deeper truth that we tune into, and we have this knowing. Now, sometimes we may not have it in the forefront of our mind, but it's the backdrop behind everything else, and where we get regeneration or empowerment is when all of these things can line up so that they are integrated rather than disintegrated. So integrating our basic influences while being here now to claim our present power in the moment is the tricky part. And that's what consciousness is all about. It's the ability to be conscious of how we function within this energetic soup that we live, which is the entire universe itself, various levels of energy, and play that game in a conscious way so the force is with us and gives us personal power and empowerment and the ability to do and create whatever we want, rather than works against us so that it creates symptoms and problems with messages that, you know, causes us to spin backwards and endure and survive things that we can't change or escape. So there's 2 different ends of this spectrum of energy, and one is basically playing the game ahead of the curve, and the other one is less conscious and causes us to play the game behind the curve. And one's a lot more fun than the other, is basically what it comes down to.
Right. Now, I'm going to try to lighten this up a little bit, Doc, because you have a scientific approach, and we we have a whole bunch of people in Blog TV.
Sorry, that's my handicap, you know.
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of people in Blog TV, and their head is spinning. Like, what the heck are we talking about? So let's lighten this up a little bit, and maybe let's go back just for a second, Doc, and talk a little bit about why most human beings are confused. What's this confusion?
Well, the confusion is that they think about themselves in a way that isn't real in terms of how they exist energetically. So it'd be like if you were being scored in a game by how well you played basketball, but in your mind, you're thinking golf. And so you're playing basketball as if you were playing golf. And it doesn't work very well.
Obviously. So let's clear it up a little bit more, Doc. So what you're talking about is how we see things, because how we see things is 90% of how we perceive, human beings perceive the world.
Exactly.
Our world. So how we see things, how we feel about what we see, and then what we say, and then what we do as an outcome, right?
Right.
Now most people, these 4 things are not congruent.
Right.
Like,
and
how do you say
that?
Like they see one thing, they feel something, but they won't say what they feel. They actually pretend they feel something completely different, and they'll say something different, and they do something completely different. Correct?
Right. And when you do that, by definition, you are disintegrated. And if you do that long enough, you will disintegrate your physical body and your life.
Yep. Which actually shows up as illness. It's pretty simple
once you see it clearly. Now, that doesn't mean that it's easy, and the reason it's not easy is because something else may be far more familiar. So let's start off with the basic nervous system of the body so that we can start to get a picture, because that's what this chapter is really all about, is just outlining the basics in terms of how we function. And so we have two unconscious nervous systems. One is for safe, loving people who are worthy of trust. That's the parasympathetic nervous system. And we have another nervous system for unsafe people who are unworthy of trust. And that's the sympathetic nervous system. Now, those two nervous systems are attached to every organ and gland in the body. And so every organ and gland has a regenerative tract and a degenerative tract. The degenerative tract is associated with being around people or environments where you can't feel safe to open up, be vulnerable, and connect. And that to be safe with the feeling that other people have your best interest in mind. So sometimes we need to do that, but if we do that too much, what happens is we overstress the sympathetic nervous system. And virtually almost all of the stress problems, and therefore degeneration problems, which is by far the main thing that causes all human health problems, at least in this country for sure, is the sympathetic defensive nervous system strategies. And they're basically designed to be able to survive being in an environment where we don't feel safe to open up and connect. And consequently, we can't regenerate or rejuvenate. And over time, it creates what we call aging and all of the stress and degenerative disorders. Is that clear and simple?
I'm getting all kinds of feedback, Doc, that you don't see.
Oh well, I'm sure. So tell me what we're getting, and I'll try to address it.
We're getting feedback like, "Oops, I just." Where it is, I'm lost already.
Okay, well, let's the nervous system. There's basically two nervous systems in the body. One is voluntary and one's involuntary. And the voluntary one is very obvious. It's, you know, we are able to move our fingers, our feet, our hands, our toes, talk. All of those things that we do voluntarily. And then there's a whole bunch of things that happen involuntarily. And that involuntary nervous system is divided into two branches called the sympathetic and parasympathetic branch. And one is designed to regenerate the organs and glands, and the other one is designed to degenerate. Or, well, it's not designed to degenerate, but the effect is to degenerate when we have to survive environments where we don't feel safe to connect to ourselves and be true to ourselves and be vulnerable. And usually, ideally, those environments would include our primary relationship and our primary friends, our primary workplace. And if that is true, if we can feel safe and connected in all of those places, we're going to be pretty healthy. But if we don't have a safe primary relationship and we don't have friends that we can really open up and connect to, and we don't have a job that we can really feel connected to and supported to, you see how things are beginning to go backwards?
Yes, I do. So, Doc, in my experience, and I've been most of my life in sales, marketing, way out there in front of people. Now, in my experience, is being that most people are already afraid. As a general state, they're afraid to be sold. They're afraid to put themselves out there, like
Right.
show up who they really are. Most people are pretending. Most people are lying.
Well, and
It's a mess.
the sad part is that has become the norm.
Yes.
But see, we're at a period of time now that is no longer going to be tolerated by anyone or anything. The universe is shifting its energy, and that energy, which is basically defensive in nature, is not going to allow us to regenerate and rejuvenate, which is the only way that we can really thrive or
Yes.
survive.
Yes, right on. Okay, Doc, it's time for our second commercial break. So
All right?
let's everybody benefit from these awesome commercials, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network.
Discover how to create your extraordinary life with personal coaching sessions and all the ongoing support you'll need to define your vision, realize success, and create your extraordinary life. Join our online Ask a Coach program and connect with one of our expert coaches in the areas of health, personal finance, relationships, personal growth, environment, career, and spirituality. Go to www.askacoach.us and register.
What do you get when you mix dozens of experts, personal development tools, and a community of family and friends with your dreams and aspirations? Life-changing results without a lifetime of effort. Now you can work with all of your clients online, promote your business with a new and exciting professional expert directory, and meet new potential clients. Save time and make money with every client online. Come be a part of a great new community for self-improvement. Listen now for details from your radio show host.
You're listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network.
Our spiritual development is a journey that needs deep personal commitment to have a lasting impact on our lives. A high level of awareness is the beginning of all areas of success in our life. With our spiritual house in order, our relationships, finances, and health find a powerful balance. For you, your friends, and your family, there is a new online community with goal-setting tools and professional experts to help you create your own spiritual plan and put it into practice. Listen now for details from your radio show host.
You're listening to Real Coaching Radio. Building a positive network.
Okay, welcome back. And if you are tuning in, you are listening to and watching the Consciousness Systems Show on Real Coaching Radio Network. And we have our host, Dr. Dean Allen, in the studio, and also I'm here operating our network, doing 10 million things all at the same time. I hope I do it well, Doc. So I'm Coach Steve, and I'm the creator and the founder of Real Coaching Radio Network. And it looks like we have a caller, Doc, and I think it's from out of the country. So we're going to attempt to patch this person in. His name on Block TV is Gaming Freak 210, and we're going to see he has some questions apparently about life. So let's see if we can connect him up. And in the meantime, give me a second here, because
sure,
I got to see if I can get him in here real quick. And for some strange reason, I think because you called me, yeah, I forgot. This is the reason why I need to call you, Doc.
I see.
People. This is, so that I can add people to the show.
Okay. Well, if you can get the question, why then I can respond to it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a nice young man, and he's from Austria, I see, and I'm sorry that I can't connect you right now, but we just learned one of our lessons. So what you could do is you could just put your question into the chat room at Block TV, and I'll repeat it on the air, and Dr. Allen will respond to you. Okay. So let's get back to how we function, chapter 4.
Okay.
And you were talking about feeling unsafe and sympathetic. Did you get through 1 and 2, Doc?
Well, I got through 1, and 2 is kind of a summary. And basically what it is when we feel unsafe, it causes sympathetic nervous system reactions that degenerate us from the stress of being in defense, which is feeling unsafe. And this causes, over time, degeneration, dysfunction, disorder, and disease. And it's just that simple.
Okay. All right, so we're ready with number 3?
Okay, number 3. Basically, what we find is that humans either show up and express their truth, which creates an up-and-out energetic pattern. In other words, their first decision is to be true to themselves and then to figure out how to do that in the best way possible, given their choices. Now, the other choice that they have is to not be true to themselves. In other words, the first decision that has to be made, probably within the thousandth of a second, is Shakespeare's famous quote, "To be or not to be." And that is whether we're going to approach our life in defense or offense. And that first decision, that, like I say, is probably made within a thousandth of a second, determines the direction and the pattern on how we think. Because we will think one way if our philosophy is to be true to ourselves and express ourselves, and we will think another way if our philosophy is to not be true to ourselves and not express ourselves. You see how those are completely different patterns?
Yes. Yes, I do.
So to not be is to hide and suppress our truth, in other words, create a down and in pattern that will access memory from our past that is a memory of drag on spirit, life force, energy flow. So in other words, it's just another memory of another situation where we chose to not be. And then that memory will be used to enhance whatever decision we're making in the present.
Right. That's
so
pretty awesome.
This is why consciousness is the only elegant solution, because it's the only thing that gives you that choice in the moment. Without it, there is no choice. You just do what you've always done in the past. And of course, so if you do in the present what you did in the past, you recreate your past in your present.
Yes. Okay, so I'm tired of writing in the chat room, Doc. So, Gaming Freak at Block TV, I cannot add you right now, so you're going to have to just accept my explanation, and I'm not going to cut our host off of the show right now to accommodate you calling in. So you're going to have to call into the show next week, and I will make sure that we set up the show properly, so I call our host so that I can add other people into the show. That's just the way it is. Okay? Because he keeps writing me all kinds of stuff, and it needs to end. Okay?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah, you can write in the chat room, that's fine, and we will respond to you. I will read it on the air. Finally, he got it. So, Doc, getting back to showing up, you know, I mean, I love what you're saying, because, you know, most people are not showing up.
Right.
And
exactly.
This even included me, Doc. I was just talking about this in our mastermind call this morning with all of the radio show hosts. Is that I noticed, Doc, that last year, which was in our third year of Real Coaching Radio Network, I kind of took a back seat, and I only had one show, and I pretty much let everybody else shine, and I just took an attitude that I supported everybody and make sure that everybody had whatever they needed to create awesome programming, and I was just playing the producer. And last year, I realized that didn't work anymore, Doc.
Right.
Because I needed to walk the talk, and I needed to do what I'm doing now, which is be the leader.
Right.
Take leadership.
Exactly.
And do exactly what I'm asking other people to do, so that they can follow what I do.
Yeah.
You know, not sitting back in the background where they don't even know who I am or what I do, like hiding.
Right. Exactly. And this is virtually what I find to be at the bottom of almost every single client I see, in one way or another. Now, it'll be different in everyone's life, but it all comes down to this issue of showing up or not. Because when you don't, it obviously creates problems and disconnection between you and yourself and everyone else.
Yeah. So we got Gaming Freak, Doc, starting to interact with us. So let's take this on. He says,
okay.
So in my opinion, every person has his own spirit inside of him, or her, obviously, and nobody in this world can be trusted. Just think of it as an island with unknown people. You just have to rely on yourself.
Well, here's where we get into semantics, and maybe there's some degree of truth in that, but the truth of the matter is, in terms of regeneration, and is that it requires trustworthy connections. And of course, it doesn't have to be a lot of people, but if we're completely disconnected from everybody in every way, and remember, trust is not about agreement. It's
Yes.
about feeling safe to express your truth, and that it be okay if your truth is whatever it is, as long as you're true to yourself. And that's a different feeling than you can't trust anybody. And that feeling of not being able to trust and therefore be vulnerable and therefore open up and connect is a degenerative feeling. And if you overemphasize that at the expense of a real connection and a real feeling, and everybody who's had that knows what it is, then over time you're going to degenerate, because you're in survival mode by definition from the nervous system. In other words, that's what the sympathetic nervous system is designed for, is to allow you to survive situations where you can't trust. But the nature of the degenerative system is that it subtracts energy, and over time that's going to be degenerative. Is that clear?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Actually, it's interesting, and what I want to add to it, Doc, for Gaming Freak, is that I believe that when we say I don't trust anybody, what we're really saying is I don't trust myself, because there's only one of us in the room.
Right. Right.
And that's
fear-based. It always comes down to what I call primary connection, which is with yourself. And here's the irony. If you don't trust yourself and therefore connect with yourself and don't show up as yourself, what shows up is what I call the not you. And then if you establish a relationship with the not you, at some point you will feel like you are not there. And of course the reason is because you are not. That was the whole premise of the whole idea to begin with.
Yes. Yes, I hope Gaming Freak is getting this. He also added some more stuff, by the way, that I want to share. He says,
okay,
also in life, you have to bow down to one spirit. And he says, and in my opinion, religion isn't important. Every human being in life should only believe in one spirit, and that's God.
Well, I think there's a certain amount of truth in what he's saying, because it's our spirit which is connected to God. I assume he would agree with that, and being true to our spirit. Now, the way that it seems to me from working with all the people I have over the number of years is that everybody has what I call their divine intent, and that's their special gift that they're here to, first of all, connect with, and second of all, express. And when they do that, it regenerates them. And that's the challenge, because trauma memory spins the energy backwards and causes us to go into reaction when anything in our present world triggers it. And if we're not conscious enough to get ahead of it so that we can stay out of survival or trauma or defense, then we're going to continue to degenerate. So that's what the game is all about, is getting out of defense into offense so that we can regenerate and rejuvenate and manifest and express our spirit's divine intent.
Yes, right on. Right on. And he's starting to get into religion. So the way I feel about that is For me, religion doesn't work because we human beings created so many gods. And there's
Well,
only one.
let me go into something on religion here, and this is
Okay.
not from my work. It's from Scott Peck's work, and he was a professor of psychology at Harvard for his entire career, focused on spiritual psychology. And one of the things that he came up with at by the end of his career was what he called the 4 stages of spiritual development. And these 4 stages start off with the first stage, which he called chaotic antisocial. And that's when your life is in chaos and you can't get along with anybody. And at that point, religion becomes very functional because it provides an outside set of belief systems and ways of being that, if you follow, will get you out of chaos and antisocial behavior into being able to relate and connect and function as a community. Now, that's very helpful at that stage, and it lasts for, different lengths of time for different people. But at some stage, people begin to look around and think that they don't need someone from the outside to tell them what to do anymore. And they become more and more focused on what they need to do is to disconnect from outside belief systems and connect to their own spiritual truth. And when they do that, they go into, and by the way, organized religion is the second stage of spiritual development. And when they reach this point where they are feeling an inclination to go to an inside-out belief system or connection, then an outside-in, which is what organized religion is, then at that point they go into what Scott Peck called the third stage of spiritual development, which is what he called the scientific atheistic. And the key word here is atheistic, and what that means is without belief system. In other words, outside-in belief system. So this third stage is a disconnection from an outside-in belief system so that you are allowed and able to connect to your inside truth. And once you connect to that inside truth, you reach another stage, which is his 4th stage of spiritual development, which is characterized by what he called all in one. And the name of that stage that he called it is the mystical metaphysical. And it's that stage of consciousness where you realize that the entire universe is one cosmic soup of energy, from the most fine to the most dense, and everything is connected. And at that point, you have a new perspective on reality, and you also reach a point where you come into agreement with all of the rest who see that, and that's what allows us to have peace. But it's on a very high level of consciousness. Not that it's difficult, or it's actually very simple, but if you are very familiar and have many generations of programming of being in defense and disconnected from your truth and not feeling safe, this can look like a long ways off, but it's basically you get there one step at a time, and those are the 4 stages that Scott Peck outlined in his spiritual development. And he has a book with this in it. I can't tell you what the title of it is. But anyway, hopefully that'll help this religion argument, because there's a place for it, but it only takes you so far, I guess, is the bottom line.
Right. And then Gaming Freak is adding a couple of more thoughts that I want to share, and then we're going to move on.
Sure.
But he also says, some people say that when you die, and if you're bad, you may go to hell. and they will torture you with hanging you, etc. But in my opinion, in hell, a person gets what he feared in life. And Music Machine also shares something at Block TV, and he says some people go through hell right here on Earth.
Well, that is hell. Disconnected from yourself is hell. And in fact, the word sin is an archery term that means off the mark, which is really in this sense means disconnected from your truth or your spirit. And that is hell.
Yes, and all that stuff that he was referring to about, you know, being punished and going to hell if you don't behave, to me that's all fear-based stuff about religion. It's about control.
Yeah, and then, you know, it's probably based on somebody's idea of what's right instead of what works energetically and what doesn't work. And see, this is why I finally got into what I would call organic psychology, is because it's not up to me to figure out what's right and what's not. It's up to me to observe what the body tells me. In other words, when a person does this, do they regenerate or degenerate? Or when they do that, do they regenerate or degenerate? What I've found from doing this work is that when you express and learn how to do it clearly, quickly, and appropriately, over time you will regenerate, because what will happen is those that you don't harmonize with when you express your truth will leave, and those that appreciate and respect what you're saying will get closer, and that's the way it's supposed to work. So that's why it's so important that you express your truth, because then you don't attract what you don't want.
Right.
Otherwise you might.
Yeah, and Gaming Freak says, in my opinion, no one knows what will happen after that, because nobody knows that. So Gaming Freak, I wouldn't worry so much about what happens after death. Worry about the quality of your life and
in the moment,
everybody else's life right now, in the present.
Right. So I think this brings us to number 4, which is beyond a clear view of reality. Humans have their own personal little r view of reality that is often consciously misaligned with what I call big R. In other words, there's 2 realities, big R and little r. Big R is the way things really are according to the laws of energy and the ways of energy, and everything is energy, and energy always operates according to the laws of energy. So that's big R, is reducing it down to the behavior at the energetic level. Now little r can be anything that anyone told you or that you came up with in your own mind. It's your own idea about whatever, and it may or may not have anything to do with reality on an energetic level. And the difference between big R and little r is what creates symptoms and problems. In other words, the more your little r is aligned with big R, the smoother, more regenerative, more productive everything is going to be in your life. The less so it's aligned, the less.
And I have proven that to be absolutely right on for me.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to speak for anybody else.
I've seen it in hundreds of clients.
Yeah, it not only is it logical, not only is it making sense, but it actually, I have proven it to work. It does work.
Yeah. Right. Now the next one here is one of my favorite quotes by the Dalai Lama. I actually saw the Dalai Lama live do this on a news broadcast. and he was getting off a plane, and there was a reporter with a camera crew and lights and microphone and everything, and as soon as he stepped off